Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Oh, my dear. Well, welcome, relatives. This is Jerry Teo with the Healing Generations Institute and the National Compadres Network, Brotherhood of Elders, and we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today for another dialogue around Healing Generations, a podcast discussion, learning experience of that we bring wisdom keepers, we bring teachers, we bring experienced folks on to share from their experience in that way in order that we can further heal generations of wounds and of struggles, but also bring the blessings and the teachings of our ancestors to here present day so that we can learn from that and integrate that so that the next generation will have more blessings, And so I want to begin, as I always do, by thanking Creator and thanking the ancestors. And as I do that, I invite you to think about your ancestors, those people that have come before you that have done some work and persevered and didn't give up and had a dream, and you're part of that dream. And we want to acknowledge them, acknowledge you and the land on which you stand right now, the indigenous land where you're at. I'm on the Tongva Gabriel land. I want to acknowledge the people there, but also then acknowledge the people of your neighborhood, your hood, your barrio, all the OGs, the gatekeepers, the big mamas, the abuelitas, all those people there that pray for us, take care of us, the little kids that play in the community, and even those that are struggling, just trying to make it day by day. We want to acknowledge all of those folks that way, and we bring it home to family. Think about your family and how we can do better today, and that next generation that comes forward too. So we do that in a good way, say, Ashe and Ome Teodoro, that way. We begin in a good way. And, today I'm very joyful because we have an elder, wisdom keeper, a entrepreneur, a leader, his brother's just got a lot of his ancestors just spewing out of him, and I was able to sit with him a little over a week ago, and we sat, really, really in concert with some other folks trying to wrestle how we bring, knowledge and education in a good way to our children and then children in our schools and in our communities that way. And I've just really felt compelled to invite him on to share with you because he's doing some amazing work. And I'm talking about Chris Chatmon and Brother Chris, I just want to welcome you and invite you to welcome the listeners.
Thank you, Maestro Jerry Teo. I'm honored and blessed to be in virtual community with you and so grateful for the time spent last week with you and your team and another beloved brother, freedom fighter in the movement, Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade. I definitely would love to acknowledge, I was blessed to celebrate the heavenly birthday of my father, Herbert Joseph Chatmon, last Sunday. And our whole family went to the gravesite and just said some prayers, acknowledged and reflected on his impact on myself, my wife, our sons, and our grandson. And then our family from New Orleans came out on Monday. So I want to recognize my New Orleans family. I want to recognize my mom, Dolores and Shaw, who I'm blessed to take care of. They come way of Tulsa, Oklahoma, to North Richmond and Oakland. I want to acknowledge the sacred land that we're on, the Ohlone land of our indigenous brothers and sisters, and all of the beautiful, rich history of Oakland and the San Francisco Bay Area, and really throughout the diaspora. So I'm honored to be in this virtual space with you. And give thanks that the only way that I've made it thus far really is through the collective genius and efforts of our ancestors, my elders, and family who've consistently poured into me. So I give thanks to my family and to the community on so many different levels, man. Oakland and the San Francisco Bay Area, there's no way I am at where I'm at sitting with you if it wasn't for the Arnold Perkins, the Wade Nobles, the Dr. Zelty Crawfords, the Dr. Grace Carrolls, so many folks that whenever I put my head down, helped me lift it back up. And so just honored to be in this space and just give thanks for all those who dealt with far more with far less. So
Thank you, brother. Well, You began the conversation, but I want to invite you to go a little bit deeper into, who is Chris Chatmon in terms of your lineage, your people, and your journey. You live out in the Bay Area now, but tell me about your journey, your folks. You mentioned your dad, your mom, your people from different places. Share a little bit about that journey. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Where are your people from?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And really why I do what I do has a lot to do with my own origin story of having been adopted. And I was adopted around 12 months. And at that point, it was Herbert Joseph Chatmon and Deloitte Ann Shaw who claimed me and welcomed me into their family. And I got to tell you, man, I struggled with that growing up. They're both of African descent and of a darker complexion than I. And so I was always kind of hypersensitive to the fact that, well, why am I so light skinned? And my dad and my mom would not necessarily having the knowledge on what to say other than, look, you black and we're your parents. And so I embraced that. But it wasn't until much later I realized, and this is all I really needed, was I had two people that loved me enough to realize they could not take care of me, knowing they would give me up, and trust that two people would select me and love me and really give me that sense of who and whose I am. And so I give homage to my birth parents to know that they could not care and to have faith of letting me go, to allow me then into the Chatmon family, Herbert Joseph Chatmon from New Orleans, Louisiana, and Deloitte Ann Shaw, way of Tulsa, Oklahoma to Oakland. And so that's my mom and my dad, and that journey of growing up in actually South San Francisco. I think the other interesting thing, it wasn't that diverse. I think I had cousins in Oakland and cousins in Richmond. And as I was, trying to navigate who I was, as all children are, but in particular around racial identity, I was in a school system where there wasn't a whole lot of African-American history. I was in a context where, although I would come into Oakland, I would come into Richmond and really kind of get taste of the culture, I wasn't in it long enough to really get a deep appreciation for the beauty, brilliance of the African diaspora. And so the other aspect of my evolution is another kind of one of my first formal teachers outside of my mom and my dad, and that was Dr. Zelty Crawford, who was my first Black Studies teacher at the College of San Mateo. And that had a tectonic shift on my life. And I've been on this journey of really unlearning and relearning to begin to understand the contributions of Africans throughout the diaspora, what our role has been in this country, but in countries across the planet. And so part of my journey in growing up and understanding who and who I was is understanding my African ancestry, and simultaneously the people that always poured into me that weren't necessarily within the public school system, but were in, the park and rec department, that were in the boys club, were amazingly Black and brown leaders that always saw the beauty, brilliance, and innate greatness in me. And I gravitated and excelled outside of school because they always saw me as talented and gifted. And although I felt the public school system really worked hard to kind of break my spirit, to get me to conform, I just couldn't wait to get out of school, to go to the park, to go to the Boys and Girls Clubs, to go to camp, where I got to really demonstrate and feel comfortable with who and whose I am and learn the value of giving back. And so one of the commitments I made to myself was, I'm going to make it through and graduate from high school, but I'm going to come back and be a transformative educator for children who look like myself. And so I've been on that journey, Maestro Teo, of really trying to always evolve my craft on how to listen, how to lead, and how to support the next generation. And so at the end of the day, I was a kindergarten through 8th grade PE teacher and then a high school social studies teacher. And I just do that now in a much broader sense, but is what was poured into me outside of school. And then when I got to community college, what was poured into me around the cultural prosperity and legacy and contributions of Africans throughout the diaspora that then really accelerated my understanding of learning and becoming a student of the students. Wow. So that's a little bit about who I am.
Well, you speak to something that reminds me of of a story that this brother told me when we were talking about the aspect of fatherhood, right? You mentioned your father and the important role he played in your life. And he was sharing that he went back to Africa because he wanted to see how does his traditional ancestors do it. And he was in this village. And there was this younger boy that was kind of his guide. And he asked, because he saw him talking to this man, he said, "Who's that man?" He says, "That's my father." He says, "Oh, okay." And so they went around and then he was talking to this other man. He says, "Well, who's that guy?" He said, "Well, that's my father." And he said, "What?" So he didn't, he just kept going. And then there was a third guy he was talking to. "Who's that?" He says, "That's my father too." And he was, very confused, but didn't feel the liberty to ask. And so later on, there was an elder in the community. And this guy was doing a presentation. And so then after the presentation, he says, one of the things that I was just confused about, I had this young boy that was guiding me. And I asked him, he was talking to this man. He says that was his father. But he said that about like 4 different guys. And he mentioned his name. And he says, "Was that the young man?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, okay." He says, "Come out here." And he took him outside. And he says, "You see that man over there against the wall, disheveled? That's his biological father." He says, "But he got hurt in the war. And it took his spirit, but he gave him the seed. These other men are fathering him. In our culture, we all are their fathers." And so the thing is that sometimes in our journey, the one that inseminates, they're supposed to give us a seed, or they're supposed to give us the beginning years, or they're supposed to give us the beginning teachers. But then the ancestors say, here's your next set of teachers. Here's your next set. And the thing is that in this Western world that categorizes things as, who's your real parents, who's your biological parents, who are half brother, they want to mess everything up in our cultural ways. We are fluid in the sense that we are raised by many people. We have many fathers, many mothers, many grandmothers. Growing up in Compton, I had my 2 grandmothers, my mother's mother and my father's mother, but then I had Miss Mosley and Tyrone's mother. And, she was like my grandma too, because she could beat my ass too, but she would take care of me and feed me and love me up too. So, what you're pointing to is really when we begin to unravel the description that this society says about who we are and how we should be and who should take care of us and who should love us up and who should teach us. Then we come into a spirit that allows us to really honor ourselves and live in a good way and be able to explore who we're really supposed to be. So I really appreciate your story that way, because I think that a lot of us struggle with these conventions that society puts on us and makes us feel ashamed, or that we're not whole, or our parents didn't want us, or no. There's a journey that we needed to be on in order to get where we're at.
That's right.
But I also recognize that it's not always easy. And you growing up in San Francisco in that time where there's probably not a lot of African, but I'm sure you were struggling, and I'm sure there's some challenge. So I'm wondering if you can talk to us about some of those struggles, some of those things that challenged you, that you had to make a decision what to do with or how to handle. What are some of those struggles, and what are some of those challenges that you struggled with that really challenged you to really look a little bit deeper, or look outside to someone else that could help you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the story. I appreciate the context, and you just giving me even more framing and permission to lean into the community and network of fathers that have poured into me. And I think that's why I do what I do. As far as, lessons and challenges, I think one of which was kind of my experience in public schools of not being kind of a traditional learner that would sit in a classroom and take the information and regurgitate. That I always found that I found myself at my best when I was moving outside, playing, demonstrating, like really being actively engaged. And so I think one of the challenges in particular, I'd say kindergarten through 10th grade, was not letting what I was experiencing at school and being labeled as special ed, as learning disability, as having, like he has behavioral problems. Like it was always all of these negative things in that context was just not given up. And I think one of the classic stories that I could not believe a teacher would have done this, but happened to me was in third grade when my desk was in a coat closet.
Wow.
And it was the sixth day of school. And at that point, we'd get paddled, and Miss Keogh realized that paddling wasn't working. So she had me pick up my desk, open the closet, put my desk in the coat closet, and I would get my instruction from the desk in the closet. And when I would ask questions or I would be, talkative, she would close the door. And I was on the verge of, really just kind of giving up on that. And I tell you, I was messing around kind of in the closet looking for things. And I found a bundled up poster, like in a box in the corner. And it was a Langston Hughes poem that said, "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is like a broken winged bird that cannot fly." And when I read that, I was like, you're not going to break me. You're not going to break my wings. And so I would sing in that class. I would make beats, and it would drive her crazy. But all that to say, my desk stayed in that closet until back to school night, which was about the 6th week of school, when my mom came to back to school night and all the parents were sitting in their child's desk. And my mom was like, "Son, well, where's your desk?" And then I opened up the coat closet and threw the jackets off the desk and said, "Mom, this is my desk." And my mom said, "Chris, go outside, and I need to speak with this teacher." So after that conversation, my desk was never in the coat closet. Yet it was this explicit and implicit bias, aggression that I always had to endure. But it was really those folks in, sports, recreation, camp, that just, it was the polar opposite of all what I felt in school, which just kept me going. They were like, man, you're witty. Man, you're a good athlete. Man, you're creative. And it was those things that I would say that just kept me going. And I learned through that nothing was actually wrong with me, that the source of the problem were the adults. And so I think that was probably that consistent through line at times kind of drove me to the edge of either giving up or like, oh, let me go, do stuff I knew wasn't right. But I'm just so blessed. I am truly the product of my community, of those people that loved what they do and poured into me enough that when I thought of going astray, it was some lesson, some story, some connection that said, "Nah, Chris, keep on."
So let me press you a little bit on that, because see, I remember being there, man. I remember being there thinking, "Dang, man, I can't get this. I couldn't get math. It just didn't. I wasn't good at math, man. And the teacher, the way they taught it just wasn't interesting. History, another thing, because it wasn't about my people. I didn't like it. Doesn't make sense to me. And then it made it feel bad because I didn't like the way they were teaching. I didn't like the way they were coming at me. And after a while, you begin to think, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe, maybe I am stupid. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe, forget it, man. I don't even want to go to school. Why do I need to go? It seemed like, I would imagine you being in the closet, dude. You being in the closet, and them closing them doors on you, as a little boy, man. What happens to a little boy's spirit? When they're closing the closet on you, man, when they're making you feel like, we don't even want you in here. I'm going to close the closet on you. What was it? Who was it that was speaking into you or speaking through you that allowed you not to allow your spirit to break?
Yeah, I can remember names of people. And let me be clear, there were times of crying. I didn't have the perspective I have now. I think, going to Park and Rec, there was this brother named Stephen and Newman, who I would come into that park in the position of a wilted flower, and they would immediately pick up on my energy, and they would just pour into me, man. We would play either Chinese checkers, or we would go play some chess, or we would go shoot some hoop. And I don't even know if I had the ability I don't know if I actually even said my desk was in a coat closet, but they knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
But they gave me just enough medicine, and medicine in the spirit of I see you, and play as a way just to give me perspective. But I'm just blessed along the way. It was, and then the Boys and Girls Club, because at that point you pay $5 for the year, and I could come in. That was our child care. So there was when I had opportunity through bumper pool and through all those different games. So, and then there was also a brother who's still my friend to this day. But what also kept me going was I would just look forward to all school year. I could not wait to get to camp. And there was always this one brother. It ended up being a whole community, but this brother, Gary Beasley, he's actually the co-chair of my board of directors now. I met him when I was 7 years old. And he was just a little bit older than me. He was like 14. But he was one that, again, saw the tomorrow in me and actually would just elevate. Hey, man, let's go do this. It was just always, he just exposed me to different things. And it was that I was just always blessed that be it in my community or be it in camp. And then he stayed connected with me until, even to now. He's like uncle of all my sons. But so I say that to say there were breaks, but not broke.
Right.
And this is where I give thanks to the Most High and to our ancestors that somehow there was a vibration enough that drew somebody, and I had enough thirst and awareness to be like, okay, and it got me through. And not that I didn't fall, but there were some folks that I grew up with that did fall at times, but couldn't get back up. And I was just blessed and grateful. And on that, I give all grace to my mom and dad, who also may not knew what to do with me at times, but still loved me and still, come on, son, get up. And so that, I guess that's how I would share just the blessing of being a true product of my collective community. And that's what I'm trying to do with Kingmakers, is curate and cultivate folk around who have similar commitments to our community, our culture, and to our children, knowing you're going to make mistakes, knowing you're going to fall, but then, how do they draw out why you fell? Or when you fall this time, you could fall this way, So that I'm just trying to pave that forward as it was paid and poured into me.
I know as a dad myself, man, as many times I didn't know what to do. And I'm a professional. I'm a psychologist, and I still didn't know what to do with my kids sometimes when they would act a certain way, not paying attention, not following through, not doing their homework, wanting to talk or sing or, because it was boring. It was boring. The teachers are boring, and those kids, and you were one of those kids, and I'm probably one of those kids that, I know this stuff. I don't want to listen, and the teachers many times, because there's some other stuff going on for them, many times don't even realize the energy they're giving to us. Of, I really don't want you here. I wish you weren't in my classroom. And the energy that children feel when they can tell you don't want them, you don't like them, you don't see them, you don't see the potential in them, that energetic feeling that is so powerful, But I want to lift up, because there's so many parents out there that, in spite of not knowing, they love their kids. They love their kids. And that love is like the root of a tree, right? If you know you're loved, your daddy could scold you, your mama can get on you, but if you know underneath there's this love, it's like, man, it's all right. That's right. And so your parents loved you up, and then we need other people in our family, in our community, in our lives to then say, well, let me keep you going. So let's play some checkers, let's play some ball, let's sing, whatever that was to keep you connected and flowing. Because see, what we see now in many communities is kids that have high levels of anxiety or depression or mental health, and it's because they're not flowing anymore, right? It's gotten stagnant. This trauma has got them stuck and got them feeling a certain kind of way, And I say this because there's so many people in our community that play that role. They play that role, and we had people in our community that would just greet you on the way to school. There was this gentleman, Mr. Joe. And he was, I didn't know he was homeless. I didn't know, he was just on the side of the liquor store every day. We'd walk with my dad. My dad would make me greet him, and my dad would say, "Good morning, Mr. Joe." And my dad would kind of nudge me, and I'd say, "Oh, good morning, Mr. Joe." I'd say, "Mr. "Oh, good morning, little Jerry. How you doing?" And I remember one day, we're walking to the store. And Mr. Joe must have had a tough night because his hair was sticking all up and he looked all kind of messed up. And I began laughing. I began, I began looking at I told him, look at Mr. Joe, he looked jacked up. And my dad just got on me. What are you doing? Well, look at him. Look at his hair. You don't be laughing at people. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? Go and ask for, tell him you're sorry. But go and tell him you're sorry. And I had to go in front of Mr. Joe, I'm sorry for laughing. Oh, it's okay, man. I just had a hard night, It's like, yeah, my head, man. I know you. Yeah, sometimes I look for, no, my daddy said I have to say I'm sorry. That's okay, little Jerry. Don't worry about it. I understand. You didn't mean nothing. And he was so gracious. Mm-hmm. This man, was so gracious to me. I was being disrespectful, and he was being gracious to me, And so there are people in your lives. You can be a person that can lift the spirits, that can be gracious, that can be compassionate, that can be a teacher, that can guide you through, Any of us that have so-called made it to a place where we can give back, there have been people along the way that have helped us. And when we begin to figure out, if you will, that medicine, then we can then cultivate programs and cultivate processes and cultivate teachings and help cultivate that next generation that then can give back. And I know that's what you've done, as part of, Kingmakers, that's what is developed. That's what you're guiding. That's what you're doing. And so you have all these young people, next generation that you're, keeping out of the closet.
That's right.
You're really welcoming them and feeding their spirits and intentionally letting them know that their ancestors are with them.
That's
and
right.
the beauty. So can you talk a little bit about that work? Because, so I was, when I was with you, I said, man, you do some amazing stuff, bro. You got studios and doing all kind. I mean, man, just talk about the work that you do. Let's talk about how that started for you, and then guide me to where you're at now.
Right on, and thank you. So the Kingmakers of Oakland, which is a nonprofit organization, really the essence and the foundation of that work began in 2010 when I was working. I actually got appointed the executive director of African American Male Achievement for Oakland Unified School District's Office of African American Male Achievement. It's a mouthful. The district had just come out of state receivership. They appointed a new superintendent named Dr. Anthony Smith. He went by Tony, an audacious, big, bold, white brother who really understood the importance of equity. Equity in the spirit of, when he came into Oakland, he had looked at really kind of all of the traditional metrics that we use that capture the quality of a public school system: attendance, graduation, literacy rates, suspension rates. What he began to uncover was all the positive academic indicators that the district had been tracking. Black boys were at the bottom. And all the negative academic indicators, expulsion, referral to special education with emotional disturbance classifications, Black boys were at the top. And so what he put forward to the Oakland Unified School District School Board was that he wanted to create a department that a director would report directly to him, and they would look from classroom to boardroom around what would be the approach and the set of strategies that would look at the redesign of the system, the structure, the conditions and culture that were leading the district to cultivate, perpetuate these sort of racialized outcomes. So it was an opportunity to move away from locating the problem with Black boys to acknowledge nothing was wrong with Black children, that the problem was we were sending them into this toxic ecosystem that we call Oakland Unified School District. And so it was an audacious vision. Tony and I had known each other in some further previous work. I was the executive director of Urban Services YMCA. I'd ran a small alternative high school for students who were incarcerated and then had dropped out of school. And simultaneously, I was the education chair for the Bay Area chapter of 100 Black Men. So I was doing all this, and I had 3 sons in Oakland public schools. So it was personal. I got this position, and really from there, what I realized that really the strategy on this one was going to be about long game. Yet I really need to think about how there was an inside strategy and an outside strategy where we could build a campaign that would build will within a system and align with all of the assets and community within Oakland to begin to bring tension to from board policy to how we engage, encourage, empower Black boys in these classrooms. And so that journey led me to then create 7 African-centered, Common Core line, academically rigorous classes that were accredited by the University of California Office of the President, that we were able to provide 3 language arts courses, 2 history classes, 1 G elective class, and a hip hop class. I forget which A through G. So that was an institutional win of, wow, we have African-centered classes that can be an alternative to modern world history, U.S. history that we wrote, got accredited. So that was a win. We created our Youth Leadership Council, started taking young brothers in partnership with the Brotherhood of Elders, where we took kings to South Africa, to Ghana, but also we're taking young brothers from Oakland that were not based on meritocracy, 3.5 and above, but young kings that just had the will to travel and talk about this work. So all this to say, what we began was to codify a set of strategies over the course of that 6 years that allowed me then to bring a group of students to meet President Barack Obama in 2014, that then in 2016, the My Brothers Keeper Initiative acknowledged the work we were doing as one of the 20 blueprint programs in the country that were improving educational life outcomes of Black boys. And so I stayed in that work. But one of the things that became clear, now this was my 5th superintendent, was that systems of oppression self-correct. Right. And as we started to see increases in cohort graduation rate, we created an African-centered, it was called the Kepler Academy, where we were doing engineering, STEM, and entrepreneurship. We started off with a cohort of 25. That academy within a high school was so successful that all of the Black boys in the 3 other academies wanted to apply. And it was funded by Google. 2 years in, they sunset it because it was taking Black boys away from the other academies. So we couldn't scale that. So all this to say, I began to realize, and then I ended up launching the Office of Equity, which then, although we gave birth to African-American female achievement, my counterpart, Paul Flores, who was doing work with the Unity Council, although they were outside the district at that point, had launched like a similar Latino Chicano initiative, actually using, I believe, your curriculum.
Right. Joven Noble, yeah.
Joven Noble, yeah. We moved that into the district, and then we launched Asian Pacific Islander. That really was the beginning. Although they were good strategies, it was the beginning of then taking me to a breaking point of then trying to fundraise all of these different things. So I say this to say, but we codified a set of strategies. We created our theory of action. We framed the work of healing the fish while treating the toxic ecosystem, and published 2 books, did a documentary that ended up giving birth to Kingmakers of Oakland. So I realized the next evolution of this work, it could not live within the district, although we had some good wins. The long-term sustainability of what it is we were trying to do had to live outside of the system. And so then I applied for the 501c3 in 2018. It took 2 years for the government to authorize that. I thought we had extra scrutiny, which is a whole nother story of why it took us 2 years to get our authorization letter. But once we got that, I left the district in 2020, right in the pandemic, June of 2020. And we've been growing the work, expanding our footprint from Oakland to global, bought a building that allows us to cultivate creativity and imagination through music, film, animation, video, TV production, and fashion design as another way to disguise the vegetables of how to read, of how to do science, of how to do math in areas where our young kings in particular enjoy learning. And so that's the part of the journey I'm on. And now I went to this camp I was talking about, Maestro Teo. I was there Monday, and now we're putting together our performa and our pitch deck to get 200 acres in Mendocino County to then provide a place for our year-round outdoor education, rites of passage, and mindfulness retreat center. So our children, our staff, and families can actually get out of this built urban environment and just heal and celebrate and learn. And so that's the next part of my journey. But blessed that I had the opportunity for a window to really innovate, to center Black boys while serving all, because I think all of that really got me ready for what it is I'm doing right now. And so at the end of that, our mission really is to improve educational life outcomes of Black boys from preschool through PhD. And so what I'm trying to do now is set up the infrastructure, own land in a way that with or without me, the next generation can build off that, have the social capital, the infrastructure, the resource, to then be on a global trajectory of how we're connecting the African diaspora, creating a place of destination here for others to come, learn, heal, add to, while we stay and take young people around the world, understanding the contributions of Africans throughout the diaspora while we learn, but also help support. So,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me congratulate you on that, because I know that journey was not easy, and it came with, a lot of challenges, I'm sure, and we had this conversation, last week when we were talking about, how when you truly embrace the ancestors and have their spirit with you and water that and believe in that and have faith in that they open up doors and open up opportunities that you never would imagine could be reached,
That's right.
And I really want to lift that up too, because, I think that many times we believe, well, it's because, Chris is sharp and entrepreneurial and has all the, these skills, and that all of that's true. But I really want to also lift up your spirit and your connection to your faith and to your ancestors and to your culture, that when you create space for that, then they walk with you.
Ashe.
And they walk behind you, and they walk in front of you, and they open up doors and spaces that you never would have ever imagined could be opened, right?
That's right.
And I think that often in this work, we don't recognize, the grandma's prayers, the minister's words that provoke things, the youngsters that are advocating communities so that there is even the possibility, and the struggle of the generations that had come before that allow you to even step in the room where you can buy a building.
That's right.
Because there was a time when you couldn't even buy a building, right?
That's
and
right.
Now you're buying acres of land. So this is a dream that has been, long walk with many, many people. And, so congratulations on that. And I'm really eager to see how we can collaborate and work together on much of this work. I want to ask you to talk a little bit about, some of the creative work that you do, because I'm really interested in, I know you got an award from some of the animation work you did, and you have several studios that you're doing. Talk a little bit about, to the audience about that a little bit, because that's fascinating to me, the creativity that can come from the beauty of one's culture.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate you acknowledging, if we understand the vessel, the physical body and its relationship to our ancestors, the earth, and really the celestial skies, that you just receive abundance on so many different ways. Yes. So I just want to acknowledge, I've been talking about this balance of artificial intelligence with ancestral intelligence.
That's right.
And that's why it's so important that we understand who and whose we are, that we understand and ground ourselves in the earth, to understand what can be revealed to us through the stars, to manifest all that our ancestors sacrificed, and the knowledge that in this language, English, in this culture, capitalism, Eurocentricity, it stripped us of that muscle and that awareness. And so that's where I'm continuing to unlearn, to relearn, because it's all there and it's within us. So just double click on all of that and to speak to then the other area within school systems that the only from K-12 where they do cultivate, which is our innate superpower, creativity and imagination, is kindergarten, where in kindergarten, there's this acknowledgement and this recognition of celebrating creativity and imagination in young people. But after that, it's suppressed, it's conformed, it's ridiculed. And so from our standpoint, Kingmakers of Oakland, we try to find ways to cultivate that through that in school and out of school. And what we realized, because it wasn't even my idea, this idea of having a music studio, animation, video, all these different things really came from listening to young people on what excites them. And so in that, we went out and purchased an 8,000 square foot. At this point, it was just recording studios, repurposed it to have the animation, the video, TV production, the fashion design as a way to engage young people who weren't being engaged in schools to get them in to cultivate their creativity and imaginative spirit. So in our music studios, we have our 4th album. We got 2 that we haven't released yet called Royalty. And it's all asset-based content. It's not bubblegum hip hop, but it's, artistically, the attention to detail on, and I'm not a lyricist or a poet, but the team, I hold vision, but the folk who have manifested this are amazing artists that have developed younger artists on how to use what I believe is one of the most powerful tools that we have access to, the pen and the paper, to be able to speak truth to power, find your voice, and curate and create just dope lyrics on top of the beats, and then curate songs. We've realized that's another way for young people to heal, to tap into their innate greatness, and then penetrate and engage younger folk globally. And so I say this to say that we do movement music and see and understand the power of music, which has always been in our culture. It's been misused. We are now learning and understanding how to leverage that in a way that our young people can monetize it in all the right ways. They can leverage it to unlock their innate greatness, but also be the balm counter to these present narratives when you do turn on the radio. And so that's one domain, the music. The animation was one of the other opportunities. We immediately went global because our primary animators are Black Native Productions, 3 animation houses from South Africa.
Wow.
And it's been an amazing partnership. It was difficult. We didn't realize how difficult it was to move money, interestingly enough. And that's a whole nother story. To pay people in Africa was another interesting challenge in this country. We navigated all that. But our animators and advisors are all our South African brothers.
Wow.
And so it's been beautiful as we then write music locally. They have been able to lift stories within the African culture, in particular South African and some of the other smaller groups, and layer that onto how we're blending our experience with their experience. And then we learn and have this, not only the technical exchange, but the artistic and cultural exchange. So excited about that. And they've been advising us on then as we building out the animation studio, they're our advisors. So that's been awesome. And then the animation pieces, and we wanted to get into animation because when young people, they listen to music and music, how that impacts them. And then the animation, they were talking about anime. And so I just started looking at all the anime. And although the creativity of the artistry of the animation was awesome, the messages and the content wasn't the most positive. So we were like, all right, cool. As opposed to, poo-pooing on it, we were like, well, what would it take for us to do that? And so we have a group of young artists here now. We'll actually be doing 2 summer sessions in June to finish out a 15-episode series of 8 young kings from Oakland and diverse young kings going through their trials and tribulations, and then they sing songs. But it's been awesome. But we leverage that as a way to cultivate creativity, imagination, teach STEM, science, math, but also then monetize and then put into the ethos positive asset-based stories, because we come from a history of griots. We come from a history of orators who've kept the message through talking, through communicating. And so our ability to do that now through music and through animation has been another way of countering or offsetting what we tend to get in this country. And so just to accelerate the podcast, we do our Breaking Bread and our Crossroads. Our Breaking Bread series is our kings that interview, and I want to get you on. Master Teo and our young kings are the interviewers. Our Crossroads was around the intersectionality of Blackness, in particular, be it if you identify as they, them, male, female. That isn't for us to decide, but if you identify within the diaspora, we want to continue to support. And so we wanted a place then that could bring in a broader variety of voices around the energy of masculine and feminine energy from an African perspective that also could help our young people navigate and understand that we are beautiful people and how we show that is diverse. And so that's another section. So we're doing more, and we do a lot of video content. We have our Portraits of a King series as well. And so we also know that whoever controls the message and the story has the power.
Yes.
And although we're telling those stories, penetrating the mass media is very difficult.
Yeah.
So our goal was like, let's do it from soup to nuts and get it out and not ask for permission or not say, hey, give me a slot. That we'll do that. And in time, this will be the way. And so we do that in fashion as well. So I say all that to say that this is a vehicle to engage young people, to have asset-based stories, to teach them mechanics, the entrepreneurial skills, so they can either sustain themselves on that end or create content for us that then revenue comes back while we put money in their pocket, because we also make sure that they are embedded in the publishing, in the masters, in the writing, so they get royalties from that. We haven't really made any money yet, but in time, it will. So that's been our Cool Labs Design Center and Production House, just this creative hub. And the goal is that it's global and folks throughout can come here as well, contribute, add, access, while then we go and learn from others throughout the diaspora.
Wow. Amazing, amazing, man. That's, it's so beautiful to see the manifestation of that, to see that out of that youngster in the closet, didn't know when you put him in the closet what he was cultivating, what he was dreaming about, what he had to do in his mind and his imagination in order to not break. And what you were doing, we'll put him in the closet. Those dreams, those manifestations just got seated and then he got out. And that little boy got out. And he began to sing and to dance and to dream and to cultivate and then began sharing that medicine with others, So that's so beautiful to see, brother. And, feel so elated, for you and for all those young people that you are giving opportunity for them to really recognize their sacredness and then for them to give back. For them to because, there's that force that's in our community that doesn't want us to create, wants to keep us in the closet, wants to keep our voice, hidden, wants to manipulate our voices so we're speaking hate against ourselves and others, wants us not to love ourselves, And so the system that you speak of is not set up really to cultivate and bring about these blessings and these healings. But you and all the people that you work with and that collectively guide this are recreating what really the ancestors wanted and what we need today, So I say many blessings to you for that. And any way that myself or any of us can support that or contribute to that or collaborate with that, we're right here, walking with you,
Ashe. Yeah. Well, you already have contributed. And I'm just honored now just to catch up to you and have access. And I look forward to co-designing, continuing to learn from and contribute to who and whose you are, my brother. I'm just honored to be in this space and excited now that I'm a little closer to you where I could reach out and we can get this medicine out for the next generation and for generations to come. Because I know we are planting seeds that will grow to become trees that will provide shade for children we haven't even imagined yet.
Right.
So I just give thanks for you and your leadership, your love, your light to make it even possible for brothers like myself and so many others to do what we do. So we don't do that in isolation, nor do we do that in vain. It's for, the best is still to come. So just thank you.
Wow. As we wind up today, I really want to give the opportunity because I think that, again, the society cuts us off from that generational knowledge, those generational teachings, But I do want to ask you if you would, offer some counsel, some advice, to that next generation, to that younger Chris. What would you have wanted someone to tell you? What would you wanted somebody to guide you to? What would you tell younger people that are on this journey, that are caught in the closet, caught in the web of this society? What do you want them to know? What kind of counsel would you give them?
Ashe, and appreciate the opportunity to share. I would say to the younger me and to the young generation be aware of your eye gate, your ear gate, and your mouth gate, that you are who you see. And if what you see doesn't reflect where you want to go to the library, go to places, walk to places, like push yourself then to read about people you aspire to, learn about those people that you want to mirror and model to, call, Google now with all the information, like study those people, because we are who we see. I would say what you hear, we are what we hear, like being aware if all you hear is negative, if all you hear is doom and gloom, or your culture or your community hasn't contributed, you will manifest that. So to the degree of which that you listen to positive people, positive podcasts, positive messages, and at times the adults in our community, as they were in my community at times, even in my own home, those adults may not have the opportunity, or where they're at, they may not say. So you have to look in the mirror and say to yourself, I am beautiful. I am brilliant. I am great. And keep saying that until sometimes you got to fake the funk until you believe it. And at some point it becomes your way. And so just being aware of what you hear penetrates your entire body. And so the last piece is you are what you say. And so be responsible that words are foundational, that they impact you and others. And so try to practice saying positive things. Be aware of what you're saying to others and about yourself. But whatever you put out there, it is a manifestation of what is possible. And so try to encourage yourself to speak truth, speak your truths, speak the possibility, speak your vision. And if you study and align yourself with people you aspire to that are doing amazing things, and if you listen to the lessons and to the word of what people endured to get to where you inspire, and if you say and proclaim that, then you can't help but then walk within and manifest that. And so you are what you say, you are what you hear, and you are what you see. And the last piece in closing is, at the end of the day, the one thing that you can control, and it costs nothing. And I learned this, and it really took the transition of my father, of his superpower of grace and humility, but was gratitude. And so when you wake up, which is the greatest blessing, man, give thanks. Give thanks to all those who suffered and sacrificed for you to get up, regardless of the condition, and just embrace love and life. And so having a gratitude attitude, it is your attitude, not your aptitude, that will determine your altitude. And if you operate with, and again, I learned from my father, who was one of the most humble people I've ever met, but could cut through and get whatever he needed because of grace, humility, and gratitude, that too will allow you to operate within abundance and maintain perspective. So thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit.
That's beautiful, brother. Wow. Yeah. As I heard you say fake the funk, because, there's been parts of the journey where you've been mislabeled but put a spell on that you don't think you are sacred, you don't feel you're a blessing, and you don't feel you're whole. And so in order to get there, you have to really breathe that back into yourself. You have to say those things. And I've done that too and have not felt that. And what an elder told me is, no, it's not you being false, or it's your ancestors saying to you. So when you say it and you don't feel it, it's because you're not used to it yet. You got to get to a place where when you hear it, when you know it, when you say it, you recognize that the ancestors just reminded you that you are sacred, you're a blessing, you're medicine, you're my representative. So go out and do what you need to do and make your people proud. And I believe that's what you have done, brother. That's what you're doing. And that's what you're cultivating to teach this next generation, And so I as I sit here right now as in dialogue, want to acknowledge and thank your ancestors. Thank your people for all that they have done, all the sacrifice, all the woundedness we know the history they went through, and they didn't give up. They didn't give up. They kept praying. They kept struggling. They kept working in spite of all the stuff they were going through, because they had a dream. They had a dream, and one part of their dream was Chris Chatmon. Because they knew that you're going to do something. Well, you weren't going to stay in the closet. They knew that you were going to get up out that closet and do something, right? And they knew they gave you, the people in your life, your mother and your father, they were going to get you out of the closet, not let people put you in the closet and get you out. And they were going to put you in a place where people would play with you and lift you up and build spirit into you. And that's the work that you're doing now in communities. So I want to acknowledge you and all the people in your organization that are doing it in conjunction with you. And just bless all those folks that never get an opportunity to get acknowledged. There's many people that are listening that don't get acknowledged. And what I want to say to you is continue to bless these young people up. But you can only do that if you recognize that you also have your sacredness and you are also a blessing. And at times we're going to meet those walls in which we're struggling. So connect with one another, we will pass out the information for Brother Chris and the Kingsmakers as part of this podcast. If you need to get a hold of him, look him up, buy them books, hit him up on social media and become a follower, do all of that. And you got some money, give him some money.
Come on.
Because we got to keep this going. But, brother, I just want to really just thank you so much and look forward to the continued work that we're going to do together, and to all our listeners, lift somebody up today. Call somebody, bless somebody up, and make sure as you do that, you are part of that blessing. Do something that's blessed for you, that lifts you up, acknowledge your sacredness, and recognize that we are all interconnected that way. And when we do it for one, that blessing comes back tenfold to us and our relatives. Thank you all so much from Healing Generations, and may you be blessed and continue doing the work in a good way. Ometio.
Ashe.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.